couple years ago, we did a review of this carbon steel skillet from OXO, asking if this wasn't the best new camping skillet on the market. And at the time, we determined that it was a fantastic skillet for camping and overlanding, has a removable handle for easy packing, cooked great, and was pretty non-stick right out of the box. It wasn't perfect though. The handle was a little bit looser maybe than we would have liked and not as comfortable as we would have liked. Well, recently, a small Canadian startup company called GOSO Cookware has jumped into the fray and introduced some new carbon steel skillets with removable handles that they say up the game for camp cooking. Now, before we look at the pans, I will tell you that when Brent, the founder of GOSO Cookware, was sort of in the exploratory stage, I did have a conversation with him. I told him what I liked about the OXO pan, how I thought it performed, where I thought it could be done better, and I think Brent's taken that to heart. So here we have the GOSO Everywhere Pan, and I think that's a very apt name. We have the 10-inch, we have the 8-inch, and we have the removable handle. A quick data on the pans: the 10-inch pan weighs 2 pounds, 4 3/8 ounces. The 8-inch pan weighs 1 pound, 9 3/4 ounces, and the handle weighs 7 1/8 ounces. So these are not lightweight backpacking skillets, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not overly heavy as well. There are some significant differences between these pans and the OXO. When we first got these pans, these do not come seasoned. They come as bare carbon steel. Before you use them, you have to season them. So these are not a buy it on Thursday, go camping on Friday kind of pan. They do require some upfront effort. Some people are going to find that great because they want to make sure those pans are seasoned to their standards, if you will. Other people might find it more work than they want to put in, and that's okay. All right, and if you can see, we have started the seasoning process on the pans. They don't look identical, but that is the way it goes when you're seasoning. But we've got a great start, and the cooking performance so far, as you'll see, is very good. And that seasoning was the result of multiple times in the oven, cooking, back in the oven. We also blued these pans, which was putting a magnetite oxide coating on them before seasoning. Because they're going to be used outside so extensively and carbon steel can rust, we wanted to give them an extra protective layer. And if you want to see how we did that, just check out this short video here. Another major difference in these pans is that they have a different shape. These are more rounded at the bottom, which allows for easier stirring, easier sort of pouring out of the pan. Now there are some downsides. You do lose some bottom cooking surface. The flat part is slightly smaller on this pan, the 10-inch that is, versus the OXO. The steel on the GOSO cookware is thicker, which helps it with thermal mass. It holds the heat better. And something that was important to me is that these pans are made using US carbon steel and manufactured in the United States, in Wisconsin, actually, our northern neighbor. I wouldn't be surprised if these don't come from Vollrath. I don't know that, I'm guessing. But if they do, that's a very good thing because Vollrath has a long history of making excellent cookware. The handle, I believe, comes from Asia. It is a very nice anodized aluminum handle, and it has a hook so that you can either just grip the pan and let it down and remove the handle, or lock the handle in place, and now you have a pan with the handle. So GOSO says that this is going to up your cooking game at camp. We've been able to cook quite a bit on these pans, and we've done some camp breakfast over our Snow Peak Iron Grill table recently, and I can tell you that these cook very well. The carbon steel is thick enough that it retains the heat. We had a really windy day, but the pans didn't show any sort of cold spots where they were losing heat because of the wind. So they cooked really well. They were very non-stick. And that comes from seasoning. And as you can see in the video, we had our food slide around. We didn't have any problems with sticking. Overall, they performed beautifully. And where this really upped the game versus the OXO is the handle. And more precisely, the great attachment of the handle to the pan, the secure feel of it. As you can see from the videos, we did some chefy flipping of the food. We tipped food out of it. And at no point did we have any concerns that this pan was going to detach from the handle. I can't say that about the OXO. So Brent, I think you did a great job designing this handle. I know you spent a lot of time trying to get it right. But once that handle was put on the pan and locked in place, it felt as secure as any of our home carbon steel cookware that has a permanently attached handle. So were they entirely nonstick? No, they're not Teflon. When we cooked the Spam and we used teriyaki Spam, which is not our norm, but that's what we had, it is loaded with sugar and sugar burns. So we did have a few small points where we got some of the sugar to stick a little bit to the pan, but I will tell you that when we cleaned the pan with a brush and some hot water, it scrubbed right off. There was no elbow grease involved. There was no effort to really clean it, so it cleaned right up. So no worries there. It's no different than cast iron from that standpoint. I know camp cookware comes in a lot of different materials, and honestly, I like them all. They all have their place. As you saw last weekend, we did a review of the really excellent Stanley Even Heat. If you haven't seen that, it's right here. But why would you choose carbon steel? Well, for one, you can use this on any heat source. This will work on a camp stove, obviously, as well as a campfire, and it does work on induction. Second reason is, like cast iron, carbon steel, once it's seasoned well, becomes very non-stick. And once you do get it well seasoned, they can last for a lifetime as long as they're maintained. Another benefit is that they are non-reactive. So you can cook anything in these pans once they're well seasoned without having any sort of reaction to acidic foods, that type of thing. And unlike some of the non-stick, there are no worries about toxic chemicals in your cookware. So carbon steel has a lot going for it. And like most things, along with the good, there is some bad. So what are the downsides of carbon steel as cookware for camping? Number one, it can rust. So if you don't season your pan well, if you don't take care of it, if you leave it out in a humid environment, these can rust. Number two, as you heard earlier with the data, they are a little heavy. So for backpacking, these probably tip the scale a little too heavily. So they would be more for your canoeing, your overlanding, your car camping. And the last thing is they do require some maintenance. Given that there is seasoning on these, the seasoning can come and go over time. So if you start to lose your seasoning, you need, you need to re-season these. And you need to clean them after you use them. Don't leave dirty pans laying around. Don't toss them in dishwater and let them set. So if you're willing to put in a small amount of time maintaining these pans, you don't have to worry about that. But you do have to do it. At the end of the day, after our testing, do we agree with GOSO Cookware that they have made the absolute pinnacle outdoor cookware? I think they've done a very good job. Is it the pinnacle? Yeah, I don't know. But this is a better carbon steel pan than the OXO, both subjectively and objectively. It's thicker carbon that is better able to maintain heat. That's not saying the OXO was a bad pan. The OXO is a fantastic pan. This is just better. Now, I'm not so sure I love the shape of these pans better than the OXO that has a less pronounced rounding at the bottom. That one's very subjective. Do I think it hurts it? No. Do I think it improves it? No. It's just what you like. The handle is night and day better than what's on our OXO. It's much more comfortable to hold, it's much more secure, and I don't have any concerns using this pan like I would use a home pan. So given all that, where does the OXO come out on top? Well, when you're thinking about camping cookware, quite often we're thinking value cookware. We're thinking lower price, something that you use when you're in the woods and never touch again. If that's your mindset, the OXO is the pan for you, because the OXO 8-inch pan is $39.99. The GOSO 8-inch pan, including the handle, is $119. If we move to the 10-inch pans, the GOSO pan is $129, while the OXO is $49.99. So clearly, the OXO pan is the winner when it comes to the value award. You're not giving up a huge amount of performance while saving a lot of money. But if you're willing to expand your view of camping cookware, I think that this makes a lot more sense. So hear me out. With this handle and the security of this handle, these make great carbon steel pans, not only for camping, but for home use. So when you think about this as something that you can use every day, not just when you go on a camping trip or an overlanding trip, the price becomes much more palatable in my mind. Now, there are still cheaper home carbon steel cookware out there, but they're not nearly as flexible as these pans. So if you think about it from that standpoint, GOSO has created an incredible pan that can be used for both home and camping interchangeably, at least in my mind. So then the price does not become as much of an issue. But again, if you're looking strictly for something to take camping, you know, the OXO has the value award for sure. And another thing that you have to consider when you look at the price of the GOSO pans is that these pans are made in America using American steel. And to me, that has a value. Now, I know not everybody's budget supports that. And if your budget doesn't, no harm, no foul. Pick up those OXOs if you're looking for a carbon steel pan and get out in the woods. That's what's most important. But if your budget allows it and it's important to you, that's a factor that you should consider. If you like this type of content and hearing about new outdoor gear, please take a moment to hit that sub button in the lower right-hand corner, give us the thumbs up, and share this with your like-minded friends. And we would love to hear what you think about these pans or any other camping pans in the comments below. As always, take care, and we'll see you outdoors.